Trader Joe's? $2 Chuck there? Did you get that in a bottle of $2 Chuck?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
They still have that. I like going.
They do. It's $5 Chuck now.
$5 Chuck. It's inflation.
Right.
Yeah. The sparkling
a lot of that's
water,
going through the Straits of Hormuz right now. So
right.
Up like that.
The one tanker that has all the $5 on it.
Well, you know that
I'm the captain of the $5 Chuck.
Pakistani beef is known worldwide.
Right. Halal, or whatever they call it.
I love going to Trader Joe's for the water, but Trader Joe's.
I always get wine.
It's a weird.
But you stay for the pretentiousness, is what
I
you
do.
You know,
and everybody's dressed like Magnum PI in there. So it's short shorts and flower.
You're the guy who's now retired, who's walking around having lunch with all the freebies.
Right.
Oh, is that oysters in a half shell? I'll try that.
What kind of dates are these? I spit it back into the little cup.
Actually, you're the retired cart boy, and you're just banging into all those vintage Volvos with "It has no home here" stickers on them, and
oh my God,
coexist bumper stickers and everything.
I can only laugh.
Like I've always said, they never run out of pretentiousness.
No,
right.
Trader Joe's.
It's quite a place.
Right.
Yeah.
It's quite a place.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, we know we started off with a couple of giggles here, but it's been a rough week. It's had the 2 coppers shot in Chicago yesterday, and then right after that, another copper in Chicago was shot at. You got, you had the correspondence dinner last night where this guy came in with, I think it was 2 handguns, shotgun, knives, and it's been a crazy week.
In the process, luckily he's okay.
Yeah, look, he's out in the best. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's not what happened in Chicago. And it's just one of those things that I think just every once in a while we talk about this. I just think it's something that we need to bring up again, because I just think that if people don't start paying attention, it's going to end up on their block, and they're not going to know what to do, because every video you see now, everybody's challenging the police with a fight. It's groups of people, and they're ending up going, hands on and fisticuffs and all this other stuff, because just people don't, I shouldn't say don't, but people are being allowed to question authority with violence. And listen, I'm all for questioning authority, and I'm all for asking questions, and I get it. And it's part of our society, but I've never ever questioned authority with wanting to go hands on and duke it out. And violence. It's just violence. And it just continues to get fired up. And like this thing in Chicago, the guy that shot these 2 policemen, they're preface the story that I try to get as much intel as I could, but there's a lot of stuff that it's still so new that it's rumored or, alleged or whatever. But as of this morning, it turns out that there was allegedly a 3rd gun involved, and the guy was being arrested for, I believe it was armed robbery, and he had allegedly the gun hidden on his person. And when he was going to his medical, he has to go to the hospital, so the police took him to the hospital, and during his medical evaluation, he had the gun hidden on his body, and I'm assuming it's probably going to be in his butt or in a fat roll or something. And during this, allegedly, he came out shooting,
strip search, right, or something.
Search, something like that. And
so
shot 2.
Yeah,
shot 2. One died, and I think the other one is. I don't think he's critical. I think he's more than critical right now.
Yeah, and he's
hanging on, basically. Is that what you're saying?
This happened in Chicago at Northside Hospital just the other day. What Chris is talking about, and people have heard about it, although it's probably being overshadowed by a lot of other crazy things that are going on in the country right now. But the one as of what we've heard now and what we're talking about today, there's one officer that was killed, and his name is John Bartholomew, 38 years old, 10 years on the job with CPD. Very sad situation. Yeah. Very sorry to hear that. They haven't given out a name on the other officer, like you said, because at the time of us talking about this, he's still critical. So not really any more updates on that. But
but you know what really gets me on this thing is then you get and I don't want to make a left hand turn on the story, but really what bothers me is that you have Eric Johnson, Pritzker, and all these people coming out saying, "Oh, let's keep the family of the officer in our prayers, and God bless our law enforcement, yada yada, blah blah blah." But they don't do a fucking thing to make society better or to make it safer for policemen. All they do is encourage violence and call everything racist, inappropriate, and all like it's to the point now where people really have to start thinking and looking, is what they're saying actually what they're doing? Like Donald Trump, let's just take in, and we're going to get off real quick, but he says and he's going to do, like it or not, but he'll come out and he'll call you an idiot, he'll call you whatever, but he means, and he says the truth, where these guys come out and they want to really, and this is my opinion, not the opinion of the show, it's my opinion, they want to take that situation and grandstand for their political gain. And it's and their actions, the way they allow people to go without consequences and to allow violence. And I'm talking to violence to the level of this, where policemen are getting shot, innocent people are getting shot, and you're running your mouth about how we support you and we care for you and we do this. And no, you don't. No, you don't. You take away, you do not. You take away, all, our rights as policemen. You bastardize us. You humiliate us. You blame everything on us, and then you call us racist, and you call us all this and all that. And people have to really, really pay attention. And again, Democrat, Republican, independent, don't care. You really have to start, because like right where we were talking before the show, Sean said it the best, that it's going to show up on your doorstep. And then what do? You're going to turn around and ask this policeman to start doing, taking the city back after you just want everybody sued, put in jail, and or have consequences against them for taking action. How is that going to work? I think just people need to start looking.
Well, from the police perspective, as you guys well know, my wife was a Chicago cop. District 17 is where this happened, at the Swedish Memorial Hospital, where they took this guy. And to give you a little backstory on this, for those of you that aren't cops and don't understand it, what's going on. 17 was a decent district to lurk and live in. I mean, it was nice. It was nice. I mean, I used to go visit Carrie's family up there all the time. And I was like, wow, this is really would be a great place in the city to live. Well, when you looked at it, a lot of guys went there that had a lot of seniority, and there's a lot of districts throughout like any city that, hey, I've done my time in the trenches. I want to go to a place where I can kind of feel relatively safe. And I don't care what anybody says. It's not cowardice. It's not whatever. Look, you talk about burnout and everything else. 17 was one that people went to. It was busy enough. There were some shitty areas, as Carrie told me. But the bottom line is you go there, and then there are some details you try to get on to kind of like simplify your life, because just like everyone else in the world, we're not these robotic individuals that dedicate no time to things beyond the job, which people want us to do both inside and outside of the profession, but the job's still got to be done. And transports were usually one that was a layer of like, all right, there's something between me and this individual for what he was popped for, arrested, whatever. Generally speaking, it still can be a dangerous job. It still can get you in a shit ton of money. Think Freddie Garay in Maryland and what that all led to and all that other shit there from doing transports. But generally, there's a lot of things that are going on. You're taking a guy into custody that, again, should have been searched better. I'm not getting into that. I'm not blaming anybody, things like that. Look, folks, here's the deal about police work. It's an intrusive thing to touch people in places where you're not used to touching them. And cops are human beings and don't like to get sued for doing a thorough search.
That's my point.
I want a female searcher and things like that. So, again, they're doing their job. They're taking this guy into custody. There's a game out there. We don't mess around. When somebody says, I need a doctor, the first thing a cop does is either call for medics or they're taking them there themselves to go deal with the guy. You take them to the hospital, and now hospital staffs get involved. And their job, for liability reasons as well as everything else, is to be compassionate and kind and not be like the police and everything else. And you got to run into that. So this guy knows, hey, I'm up to something here. I got something that I've got. I know they've missed this gun on me at this point, because if you see pictures of the guy from security footage, he's a pretty rotund fella running through the streets naked, holding onto a gun and a robe. And he's already had the probes placed on his chest by staff. Cops don't do that. That was done by somebody to determine what was going on. Supposedly he had ingested some crack. Again, got to get him the help, because if we don't, another lawsuit coming, guy dies in custody.
Right.
Jails have gotten so stringent about somebody saying that to you.
Yeah.
They make you as an officer take them to a hospital. Your arrest just went from, I'm taking a single officer to deal with this. It went from maybe this could be a 2-hour affair, and now we're looking at 6 hours. Half of my shift, if I work 12-hour shift, is dealing with this guy. That's basically, and I'm just saying this, folks, 9 times out of 10, coming up with the felony flu so we can delay some time or some process, see a break in the system. This guy also had previous arrests for this, had also previous convictions. And where was he in Chicago? On the street, yet again, committing another armed robbery. So this isn't just all. And again, where is it laid? It's laid at the feet of the transport officer that's 57 years old with 21 years on the job, or 38 years old with 10 years on the job, working in a district that's generally not known to be as violent as a lot of the other ones in the city of Chicago. So they go and deal with this guy. And early on, they were saying, oh, maybe one of the cops was disarmed, which was, again, how do you discredit a cop? How do you say you don't like a cop, even a cop that got killed? You kind of discredit him by saying, oh, he was disarmed in the process. I heard some reports on that. Then it turns into, now there's a third gun. From a cop, you go, all right, that's not because the guy has a drop gun on him, or a guy has a backup gun that he's wearing on his ankle or sticks in his vest because he needs a backup gun. Somebody had a gun on him that shouldn't have had a gun on him, and now it got turned on those officers. And I'm imagining when they're dealing with this, it happened probably to be relatively close to them, because hospital rooms are not that big where this probably went down, because the guy shot one. Obviously he's passed. Thoughts and prayers are not enough for this guy at this point. And then the other officer was shot as well, and we're hoping for the best from them. But as Chris said, it doesn't sound promising at this point. All we can continue to do is pray for that. But people don't understand like how these things break down. First and foremost, again, folks, where's the breakdowns in the criminal justice process laid? It's laid at the feet of police officers. And who's been demonized the most in this process? Police officers. Where's the judge's accountability in this? Where's the state's attorney's accountability in this? They're giving the new one a rash of shit in Chicago because she's somewhat cooperating with ICE and the feds in order to keep this thing moving in the right direction and drop the crime rate by 22%. I read a comment when somebody posted an article that, what does the state's attorney have to do with a drop in 22% in homicides? Fucking everything.
Exactly.
Because they're the ones that prosecute people and put them in jail. The judges work for the state's attorney's office. Again, this is now laid at the feet of the police officer. Folks, the next layer of this is you. Because we are the last, I know this, whatever, you sound like a hero. The next layer of this is now it's on your block. People have been polled recently. I read a great article in City Journal called Cops Are Cool Again. And they polled people about how they feel about police officers, particularly from neighborhoods that are directly impacted by this progressive prosecuting movement and progressive judges and these lax crime laws and accountability laws that are out there. Those people, 70 to 80% say they want more police, and they want police out there being the police again.
Right.
Guess where they poll the lowest? Guess where they poll the lowest for that? In white, rich, influential neighborhoods that are driving black families out of them and not reselling that property to black middle-class families that they bought the houses from. That's are the people that poll lowest with the police, because they're never confronted with the realities of what their policies don't really do. And that's what aggravates them. That's what aggravates the hell out of me. Chicago Police Department, if they're getting really good at one thing right now, they're really getting good at lining up outside of hospitals and saluting dead bodies of officers that are going by. Your honor guard is going to be really, really good at doing funerals. That's not a good agency to be working for if that's how the people, although they may feel that way about you, are not coming out and showing support for you, like the No Kings movement, who are actually protesting things that are actually good for our nation and moving forward with it. Where are the people coming out to show us that poll us at 70, 80% saying, hey, we're not going to put up with this anymore? When you have a judge that does that, we're going to protest out in front of the state's attorney's office and say, we're not putting up with this anymore. They don't feel the pressure because we get on with our lives and move forward and keep this republic functioning properly. And it's just getting real old. I mean, obviously,
and Chris,
it is.
Chris touched on it with, of course, I love to always pile it on Brandon Johnson and JB Pritzker because they're just awful people. And it's like you almost, I swear to God, they have just a boilerplate response to everything that they do, especially in these circumstances. And in one of the articles that we were looking through and talking about this ahead of time, of course, Brandon Johnson's got to give a statement, and I'll paraphrase a couple of the points that really stick out to me. Of course, he says it's a difficult moment for our city. It's a tragedy. Of course it is. Okay. You don't even have to say that. But when he says things like, our officers stand in the way of harm every single day, risking their own lives along with them risking their lives. They have family that expect them to come home. No shit. And you know why these guys can't come home and why they die is because you don't prosecute these people, because these people shouldn't be out there. When you say they face harm every day, they're facing harm tenfold because you don't prosecute these people, no cash bonds, no accountability, and turds like this guy that shot these two officers are doing it over and over and over again. So don't try to show your support and sound like you have empathy towards this whole process. You create this process. Yeah. You go out every day and talk about how you don't want to hold criminals accountable. The cops are racist, all this bullshit. Guys like this should be in prison. That's when you're in prison, then you can't hide a gun on you and shoot two cops that you had no business even being out on the street. Like Sean said, this ain't his first rodeo, right? And that's why. And so you say these things, it's such phony bullshit. Yeah. Because your attempt to be, sympathetic to the situation and care about the family in our city, you allow the city to be this way. You create, you enable this problem. Right. You're not solving anything. And then same with Pritzker too. What he had something to say, some of his nonsense too, that again, I'm paraphrasing because just even quoting him aggravates me, but Illinois mourns the loss of an officer who was shot and killed at Swedish Hospital. May their memory be a blessing, and may we come together to pray for the critically injured officer's recovery. You are also part of this problem. This officer is critically injured because of bad policies, soft on crime, no accountability, all the way up. Like you promote this. You can't come. You can't come and give a pre-written bullshit thing that you put out to the press that you probably had one of your staffers write. You didn't write that. Right. You know what I mean? You don't care about these people, because if you did, you don't. Part of your statement would be, we won't tolerate crime like this in our city. We won't tolerate our officers being targeted. We won't tolerate this. We won't tolerate that. We will institute stricter punishments. Like, there's none of that shit. It's just all this like Facebook phony, oh, we're really praying for you. You don't give two shits, No. And that's why this one officer is dead and another one, still hanging on. And so spare me with that shit. It's bullshit.
Well, what they used to say about, particularly in New York City, when New York City was in this same kind of mess before Giuliani took over, they said that you need three things in order to make a very, robust criminal justice program to bring prosperity and safety back to a city. Maybe not in that order, but safety first, prosperity comes after that, because people feel safe to go out and engage and interact without hobbling, staying in their apartments and hunkering down because they're afraid of things. Mm-hmm. Chicago's moved to a degree towards two of them. How we feel about Snelling. He's no chief is perfect, no superintendent is perfect, but he's very clear about what's going to be done with crime in that city. Right. And then in the last election, after Kim Foxx was, either not running again because she knew what was happening, Eileen O'Neill Burke is the new Cook County prosecutor. And again, she's doing her job. So what are they doing? They're coming after her about Operation Midway Blitz, and they want a special prosecutor put in place to who are they going to go after? Not the illegal immigrants that the vast majority of African Americans in the city of Chicago are really pissed off about how they got moved back yet again in this whole mess. They're going to go after federal agents that they can actually do nothing about, because Illinois' law says local law enforcement can't work with them. So they're putting together all this nonsensical shit to act like they're taking care of people, basically voters that can't vote anyway, to kind of like, oh, we're going to appease this mob for that. Two of the three positions are important. The final one is a mayor that will actually back the play of the state's attorney and the superintendent and his police force, or her police force for that matter. Hopefully in the next election, more than 10% of the people show up to vote for the mayor in Chicago and pay attention to who they're actually voting for. Mm-hmm. I'm speaking from my experience in following Chicago politics for a long time now. You got an opportunity to vote for a guy like Paul Vallis that's going to come into that city who's a Democrat, but he's a centrist, which is basically like a unicorn in the Democrat Party right now. Find a guy that's going to get your city and keep Democratic values alive. And what I mean by Democratic, I mean the Democrat Party's values alive of what the Democrat Party used to be. Daley is long gone. Rahm Emanuel is long gone. Rahm Emanuel tolerated shit, covered things up that police officers did so he could win an election against Chuy Garcia. Go back and listen to some of the shows that we've done on that. But the bottom line is like, you're inching closer, Chicago. Be that big city in the United States that uses the common sense reason that the blue collar people that built that city up can bring it back to the norm. Literally, all the signs are pointing towards that. You've got to be involved. You've got to be engaged. You got to understand what policing is about, as opposed to just listening to what some influencer on social media is telling you what police officers are doing. You are, no one's going to want to do the work, and you're going to be the ones left holding the bag. If you think I'm lying, go talk to somebody from Detroit that lived there in the 1980s and the 1990s and watched what happened to that city and where it is right now and how it will never recover. Bad trade agreements aside, the bottom line is that just because you're impoverished doesn't mean that you need to be an animal. And I'm sorry, I'm going to say the bad thing out loud here. That man was an animal for what he did to those two police officers. I don't give a shit what anybody says. And within minutes, a SWAT team responded and showed kindness and compassion to that human being by bringing him out and taking him safely into custody after they knew that two of their coworkers were basically summarily executed by this guy. One of them's hanging on for his life. All of the family of the Chicago Police Department, there are men and women that work there, their family members, the people that live in that city that support the police are all suffering right now because we've got elected officials that we don't pay attention to and we let run rampant with these wild, crazy ideas. Do something, Chicago. That's all I can say.
Yeah, we have to. You got to start watching, and it's just and you see the other side of it too. There was this case in New York this week, and I read some of the details. Scott, can you give us the details? It's about the guy who got 3 years for throwing a cooler at somebody.
Yeah, so this is going back to a case, which was a narcotics case that was being worked in New York. And they had a guy who had sold a police officer drugs and then tries to take off. And I don't have all the details on the actual, were they planning to arrest him there at that time? Did something happen? But regardless, it was a drug deal where for some reason this guy fled and they went after him. And what ultimately happened was this guy was on a scooter or something. And one of the cops, a guy who's been on the job, I think they said 13 years, he's a sergeant. And in the midst of trying to stop him, throws a cooler at him, like a plastic Coleman cooler. Now, is that a little odd?
They don't sponsor the show, by the way.
Yeah, that's an endorsement by Coleman.
Right.
But some type of cooler, throws a cooler at him, knocks him off the thing, and ultimately the guy dies. So without going into all the details of that or whatever, what's crazy is now this judge in New York, they charged this cop with manslaughter, and now a judge has sentenced him to 3 years in prison. And
minimum
3 years. Yeah, it could be 3 to 9, I think is what it said.
Right.
So the guy's looking at potentially at least 3 years. So he's in a situation where he does something a little out of the ordinary, but it was something that he needed to do, react in the situation. Maybe the guy had a gun, maybe, whatever. But the thing that's so disturbing about this is, we look to judges and we think, they're supposed to be impartial. Sure. Do they have opinions on things just like police officers do? Right. But they're supposed to be that, that blind justice. They're supposed to be impartial. They're supposed to, take the facts into account, what happened in this situation, and make a ruling. Because this was a bench trial. And this judge, he not only sentenced this guy to a potential long prison term here, what he felt he needed to do, that he would do this as a deterrent to other police officers, is what he said. And here's what bothers me about that. these are the same judges who don't stand up there and sentence murderers and people with gun charges and drug dealers and say those same things. This should be a deterrent to those of you that fight with the police. This should be a deterrent to those of you that can continue to get caught with firearms and your felons that shoot people, that do armed robberies. Like, where is that? You're using this guy to say as a deterrent to other police officers. You're painting all of these officers now with a broad brush and saying, well, this should show you cops that all just act out of line and do things, that are illegal. And now we're going to use this guy and we're going to set a tone with him that you're all going to go to prison. You try to stop a guy that's fleeing from you and something happens. And unfortunately this guy died. Now we're going to call it a deterrent to all you other cops. What do you think that is really going to do? Do you really think that sentencing is, we talk about all the time how cops are being charged with crimes, and like Sean said, them going after federal agents rather than focusing on arresting illegal immigrant criminals. And this poor guy, again, it doesn't sound like he's any kind of problematic officer. I don't know anything about him, but he's been on the job with New York for 13 years and he's a sergeant and he's probably
been promoted. Right.
Yeah. He's been running some kind of narcotics unit and is involved in these high risk undercover operations, which we all know damn well can turn on a dime. Nothing ever goes 100% as your ops plan lays out for. And that's probably what happened in this instance. And what is even more disturbing about this is that this same judge back in 2018, I think it was, there was a guy that killed a homeless person.
Yeah.
It was a teenager. He beat a homeless guy to death in Manhattan, a guy who was a known gang member. I'm sure probably wasn't, again, his probably first contact with the police. And he gave that guy probation. And his whole theory for this, or based on what the defense attorney said, was because, this client, this gang member who beat a homeless person to death. That's,
premeditated, by the way. But anyway, go ahead.
And he says, well, this guy was a first-time offender who had a traumatic childhood. He was sexually abused, and this and that. Okay, are those things that you factor in as a judge? Potentially. Right. But how does the same not apply to the officer that you just gave 3 years in prison when you say he's a stand-up member of the community? He's been a police officer for 13 years. He's a sergeant. He's obviously risen to the level of being promoted in this organization, and he's out there doing one of the most dangerous things. So where's that same logic where you say, well, you know what? He is a good officer. He's a good person. He volunteers. He
was chasing a person who sold dope that kills people.
Right. So where is that?
Not laying there homeless.
Where is that same reasoning that you did with this guy, where you did with this cop? And you can just tell he's so biased. He probably hates the police, and he said it himself. He's using it as a deterrent.
Well, the judge is a Bronx judge by the name of Guy Mitchell, and he was appointed by de Blasio. And we know how de Blasio felt about the police. If you know anything about New York City politics, de Blasio was the guy that was the post Giuliani and Bloomberg. Bloomberg was an independent, switched to independent after running as a Republican because he ran on the coattails of Giuliani's cleanup of that city. And then he switched because power does that to you. And then, de Blasio was the guy that came in and warned people, particularly with a tale that he told about his young mixed race son, because his son should be concerned about interacting with the NYPD, kind of a thing. And I'm paraphrasing what happened with there. He was reappointed by Eric Adams, who was the mayor, former police officer that was a mayor for a while there, and you saw what happened with him when he went out. But again, I'll chalk some of that up to bureaucracy, and the fact is that you got a lot of things you got to point, but he was due a reappoint. Well, the guy's in there, I'm not hearing anything about him, so I'm just going to probably, how many judges they probably got to do that with at the national level. But judges are important, like Scott said earlier. And this guy, again, to me, you're sending a message. You need to send a message to the police. Guess what? That message just doesn't go to the police. It also goes to the criminals. And the criminals are acutely aware of what they're able to get away with and what they're allowed to do. And We don't send messages. The mayor of New York City sends a message and says, oh, it's just a snowball fight that you get to do that. Again, it goes back to me as a police officer. I love this. The best chief I ever had, I heard him say this one time. My officers are not punching bags and doormats for you to wipe your feet all over or hit or do whatever you want because you're upset with something. Mm-hmm. That is something that is a long-term like morale issue. When you hear your chief say that, you're like, I'm going to go out and do what's right for this guy because he's doing what's right by us. We get to go home to our families and everything else. Again, that's not the end all be all. Like we get to do whatever we want because that's one of the things we want to live by. But in the same sense, we're going to do a lot less if we don't think that that's going to happen to us. And we're going to wait for bad things to happen. And then we're going to show up and take care of that like medics have to do. Would you rather not get a big cut on your arm, or would you want to see the medics to show up to do that? Why don't we do the same things with crime, but we don't want to look at it like that. Right. We want to lay the failures of this system of basically we can't tell the truth anymore. We can't say what's the most obvious thing to be said. So we have to find scapegoats for it. And again, I'll go back to 2008 when this trend started, and I saw it in the middle of our careers. I was like, this is going to change everything. And the statement was, the police acted stupidly. If there was ever a shot heard round the world in our lifetime in law enforcement, that was the statement. I remember sitting in the office watching those screen TVs that we had in there in the Intel Center. I was going, oh, that's not going to bode well for us in about 15, 20 years. And yet here we are. Yeah. And you've got this mentality of you can do whatever you want to the police, who are the foot soldiers that we send out to take care of all of these failed process and things that we can't fix as legislators, as elected officials. And I'll lay it at their feet because that's the easy thing to do. And it's been acceptable and no one stopped them from doing it. We did it to veterans for years. We did it for decades after Vietnam. I remember as a kid, I said this 1,000 times. We treated them like they were murderers, baby killers, and everything else because somebody somewhere wanted to prove a political point and ran on it. And when is that going to start changing for the police? When people start holding their elected officials accountable for it. We're not perfect. We do a lot of things wrong, just like everybody else.
Sure.
But the bottom line is to get to where I was, just to be a guy toting a gun and a badge and riding around a car is a much more stringent process than somebody who says, hey, I want to go run for mayor as as somebody that has no practical real world experience other than I got my master's online and I'm going to tell people how to govern. And I'm going to tell people how we're going to do this stuff. And I'm going to take great joy in the fact that I'm going to try to reintroduce things like communism in the biggest city in the United States and say that, this is all going to work because communism's worked so well prior to this. It's insane what we're seeing. But it all comes down to, folks, this is our system. This is our system to pay attention to and understand what we need to do to be a part of it. You can't just take your facts from social media. AI will actually help you if you really want to do a little bit of digging to find out what somebody's really all about. And again, really be prudent about who you're electing. The guy that's a master's student that's living off his parents' wealth, that went to private schools throughout, never saw any of the things that he thinks he knows about because he never even went into the neighborhoods that's going in? Or do you want to be the guy that like maybe ran a corporation or ran a big arm of the government, like the public school system or something, to be your mayor? Use your heads, folks. This is ridiculous.
These politicians, they unfortunately see cops as just expendable. They don't care. People always just assume that, well, these people assume that, hey, you signed up to do this, so hey, that's the risk that you run, right? Yeah, and we just come to work every day and go, man, I hope I don't die today. I hope that, I hope that I make it through this day. You always have that thought in your head of what could potentially happen to you. And we've seen it happen over and over and over again. But when these people tell you that they care, they don't. They don't care. You see it in their actions. Yeah, you see it in their actions. You see it in the way they govern. You see it in these bullshit statements that they put out when someone in law enforcement is killed. Then they've done their part. That's all they have to do. Hey, yeah, it sucks. We lost another cop, but hey, get that statement out. Tell them we're really concerned. We're praying for the family, and let's move on to the next bullshit thing that I do. They don't ever take it. Those lives are lost in vain because they don't turn around and say, we will not allow this to happen again. We will not see another police officer die in our city. Where are those chants? Where do those come from? Those politicians, they're full of shit. They don't care about you.
And they take a career comment. Good.
Right. You do what you do because that's what you have in you, and you have that desire to do the job, serve the public, run the risk of the dangerous bad things that happen, and hopefully make it through till the end. and be able to go back and look and say, man, I had a great career. I made it. Boy, I had some times that I was a little concerned, but here I am. These people, they don't give two shits. And you can tell that just in their words. And like you said, Chris, in their actions. Their actions don't reflect the care and concern for the people in law enforcement.
Or the people that law enforcement serves.
Right.
Those neighborhoods are no better off. And those folks, as we said, want more policing. They take careers of commendations and good interaction with the public and reputation and base it upon one little social media. Who's clicking on it for 2 seconds and it's got 1 million. So now I'm going to sell that cop out in a second without even knowing any of the facts. Like coming out there and saying, hey, this guy's had a great stellar career. This might've been just one interaction that these two people did not connect. We're going to look further into it. Nope. Sell them out. That's a condemnation of every cop out there because that's how I stay in power. And we folks, again, I'll go back to it. I'll say it 1,000 times. You get tired of hearing this from me. Pay attention to who you're voting for, because if you don't, this is what you're going to get.
Absolutely. Well, we have one other thing to cover real quick, and that was the bravery of the Secret Service and the law enforcement in Washington, D.C. last night. I'll tell you what, you want to talk about going to do your job and stuff like that and having to show up every day. I mean, what's this, like the 5th attempt on Trump's life? The 4th or 5th, right?
Seriously.
Right. Like you gotta, like, we have to go in as street cops and we have to kind of know that our stuff is in order and stuff like that. And, Secret Service does too, but they have never saw the action like they're getting now with people. And like last night, it was a guy from California came in, correct me if I'm wrong, 1 shotgun, 1 handgun, couple of knives. He breached the front door. Well, I don't know if he breached the public for the press. Yeah, the hotel. So he got through the front door, and then all of a sudden it looked like there was like tables set up. And he comes running through. He gets through. One Secret Service agent took a round in the chest or in the vest, and shootout was taking place out in the lobby area, I would guess, or the foyer into the ballroom. And they took the guy, the suspect, into custody. And I was watching the tape. I don't know if you guys saw the video. Did you guys see that Secret Service agent just like the calmest that you could be, just gets up on the stage, stands up real slow, and he's a bigger dude, so he like he encompassed Trump that was behind him, and he stood up there and he's like, man, like, all right, here I am, here we go, and then you got the CAT team coming in and like all these agents coming to take care of Trump and Melania and stuff like that. But I just thought like that was smooth, just like no panic, there was no. I'm sure he was probably scared, but there was no panic. He just takes that one giant step up on the stage with his left, steps up, spins off his left foot, and then he stands there like, bring it on. Just bring it. And that's what we do every day. This is what we do every day.
But again, we talked about, like, do you want your honor guard to be really good at funerals? No, you don't. Do you want your Secret Service agents deep down to be really, really good at dignitary protection? Yeah, you do. But do you want them to have that kind of reps that this guy's like, here we go again? I mean, that's a reflection on us, folks. That's not a reflection on the professionalism of those officers and agents and things like that. Like, Scott reached out to me, Chris, and I was doing something else at the time, and he texted me like, hey, did you see this stuff at the White House Correspondents' Dinner? I was like, no. I was like, what
like,
is like, was this Trump like losing his mind saying some crazy stuff that we were just laughing about? And he goes, there's gunshots. And my message back to him was, of course there was. Like, not shocked. I'm sorry. This is an attack on our First Amendment because it's freedom of the press. What I loved in the fact is that, again, 80% of our media is Democrat leaning and supportive of that. A study came out this past week of Media Bias in which they showed that all of these internet services that we go by, the vast majority of the feeds that they get are from liberal news sources that they push out to the rest of the world. It's not balanced. The one that I promoted, Flyover, actually got a really great grade on it, I'll be honest with you. And I think that's great because that's what people need. But the bottom line is, you look at that now, the folks, all of this irresponsible reporting that you've gone on with, all of this tongue-in-cheek stuff you've tolerated about people saying, why can't the guy get through? Why can't we get a good shot on the president? Why can't this work?
Right.
All of that stuff you kind of sat on your hands about because, as they say, when they came for me, I said nothing. Well, guess what? That was at your doorstep yesterday. And if that room is, it's Correspondents' Dinner and it's the major news outlets, 80% of those people were probably left-leaning or progressive. saw exactly what we're up against here. It was brought to their doorstep because they were all clapping for him for the first time, maybe ever. Some of them. And I was like, oh, look at this. Look at the violence that cops face every day. It was only funny to think about. Like, it's funny. It's not even, it's an inappropriate word. I'm sorry. But like 2 officers were fighting for their lives, if not already dead at that point, because of the violence that we face every day because of bad policy. Those folks, it was brought to their doorstep yesterday. If there's anything from that we saw, it's hopefully that's like, wow, this I live in this bubble of a world and report on things that I have no interaction with.
Right.
Now I've seen it firsthand in my ballroom gown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have to hide under a table because if that guy got through, and he could have got through, I mean, he could have got through.
If it wasn't for the Secret Service at that door,
he could have got through there because the hotel was open to the public during the same time. And again, like the other thing I said to my wife was like, well, I guess they're going to get that ballroom after all.
that's exactly what I said. I said
they were at the White House. It'd have been safer.
I'm like, who's a construction company doing that? I gotta invest. I gotta buy some stock. That's just your shut up. I'm there.
I said to myself, you don't learn until it's right in front of your face. And hopefully we've had some people that are a little going to move back towards what their profession expects of them in journalism, and they're a centrist and they report on things equally across the board. But it just does not go that way. And it takes this kind of stuff to maybe convert some folks. And
I'm sure there'll be a lot more details coming out about that by the next time we talk, because this is going to be a big thing.
It's going to be a big thing. It's going to be ongoing. And I think one of the things, to kind of close out the show here is to kind of put it in perspective. So you had 2 Chicago policemen that were shot, and 1 confirmed dead, 1 critically hanging on. 15 minutes after that, another Chicago policeman was shot at in the city of Chicago. And then yesterday, you had a Secret Service agent shot. Thank God his vest took it. And this is all within 1 week. And that's not even including the other cities.
Right.
That's not even including the other cities. Yeah. Right. And really, like, now you got to really take this into perspective, and we really have to start thinking about where we want to go as a country. And you just have to start paying attention. And I think all of you, find your news source. And like I said, just Sean said, fly over, which I started reading and getting involved with. That was good. We try and get the truth out as much as we can. Watch the conspiracy theories, do your own homework. And I think we all need to start coming together, put the politicians in play that will make this world a better place. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Please go to where you get your podcast, leave a rating, review, download. Tell all your friends, and please, if you can, subscribe. Let all your friends know to do the same. We're really trying to make this world a better place. And even though it's an uphill battle, we'll continue to try. Please leave us an email at 3copstalk@gmail.com. If you want to be a guest, have a suggestion for a guest, suggestion for a show, question, comment, concern, please leave it there. Or you can go to the website, 3copstalk.com, and you can get old episodes, which I encourage you to go download and listen to. And you can also leave us an email there. Otherwise, bless everybody who does law enforcement, the people that got shot this week. God be with your family. And thank you all for listening. Have a blessed day.